Greetings to those of you who are listening and viewing from around the world. I am Paula G, and I welcome you to my journey with Paula G, where we are juggling this journey called life while we're walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given us. Thank you all so much for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome to the journey. We appreciate you tuning in or listening. And if you are a returning listener or viewer, we appreciate your continued support. I always tell you all, what do I always say each and every week? Because it's so true. Time is precious. It is the one thing that you cannot get back. So for you to think it not robbery, to choose to spend this time with us is truly, truly appreciated. We also appreciate those who have chosen to join the journey through their underwriting support. Our underwriters, we thank them so very much. Without them, we would not be able to provide you quality programming on the platforms that we're able to provide you the programming. So we thank them so very much as well. I also encourage you to stay connected with me through my website, paulagvoice.com, and across all social media, Paula G Voice. I try to keep it real easy as well. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, email paula@paulagvoice.com, and I will be sure to follow up with you. Also, if you have a business product or service, underwriting is a great way to gain exposure for your business product or service. You can email jerryvoicelive@gmail.com or paula@paulagvoice.com. Put underwriting opportunities in the subject line, and we will be sure to follow up with more information on that. All right, well, before we get to our guest today, I want to share with you a bit of Paula's perspective, and it comes from my book, which is entitled My Journey to Lady Wisdom After Midnight, which is a journey of transformation from who I was to who I am today. Not that my life before was a bad life, but you go through trials in life, you go through challenges and changes, and sometimes it causes room for transformation. So that is my journey. So I want to read a little excerpt for you. Your mindset is going to determine the trajectory of your future. If you're holding on to baggage and unresolved issues, this can also affect your future destiny. Old baggage and unresolved issues can spill over and affect your future business success. You must unpack that suitcase, discard the toxic baggage, and continue to move toward your destiny, toward your I am. I remember there was a time where I was asked the question, who is Paula? And I really couldn't answer the question at the time because of the echoes of the past, the toxic baggage that I was carrying around. And I realized that I had to unpack that baggage one piece at a time. That in itself is a journey. Unpack it one piece at a time to discover who it is that I am. And I encourage those of you who may be stuck in a situation or may feel as though you're not able to move forward, you've got to unlock that negative mindset, create a new narrative so you can move into what it is that God has called you to do. I tell you all the time that the mindset, that conversation that goes on in between our ears determines the trajectory of our future. So unlock that negative mindset. Unlock those toxic items that are in that invisible suitcase so you can move forward freely into what it is that God has called you to do. So that is Paula's perspective for today, and I pray that bless and encourage someone today. All right, well, we are ready for our guest today, and I'm excited to have this lady with us. She's just a wealth of knowledge, and I don't know, we might have to do a part two, we'll see, but she is definitely a wealth of knowledge. She is the Director of Culture and Equity for all three academies. I know she's going to clarify that for us, of the Drew Charter School in Atlanta, Georgia. She has 20 plus years of professional experience in national service leadership, training and consulting, and organizational and entrepreneurial knowledge, just to name a few. She has a BA degree in African and African American Studies from Emory University, as well as a variety of other educational certificates and degrees to include Harvard University, and she's going to share that with us as well. She is a woman that is truly juggling her journey called life while walking in the gifts and talents that God has given her. She is Miss Terra Gay. How are you today? and welcome to the journey.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And as you were sharing the piece, as you were opening, I thought the only thing I would add for a perspective for people is to treat other people's luggage like they tell you to do at the airport, and that you are not responsible, nor should you take responsibility for someone else's luggage as well. Because a lot of times we take on the burdens of other people's things and carry their luggage and all the things that came with them as well. So I would certainly say, as you are doing the unpacking for yourself, be mindful not to put someone else's things in your care as well, because it is not your luggage to carry or your burden to carry. So, but thank you for having me today.
And thank you for being with us. And thank you for sharing that drop the mic knowledge. I love it, because you are so right. We're so busy, unpacking. And sometimes part of that, what is in that suitcase, is being a people pleaser. And taking on other people's baggage. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I know you just blessed a whole lot of people with that one. We appreciate it. You yourself have had quite a journey, and just it just, as I was going through your bio and so forth, and I was just floored by what it is that you've done, really a ministry in the training and so forth that you've done. Share with us a bit about your work at the academies.
Yes. So my current work with Charles Drew Charter School is, as you stated, the Director of Culture and Equity, which is really around the work of supporting the school as they set a mission for wanting to center equity in how they were approaching education, looking at all the things that create barriers for families, communities, whether it be race, whether it be economics, whether it be health, all of the things that typically we are finding as we certainly unearth. Many of us had known it all along, but for others, they discovered in the past few years that there are things that certainly have been denied certain communities for generations. And so part of Drew's approach is really looking at this generational undoing, so to speak, of things that we could do differently so that we are ensuring future generations have greater access to true equity, beyond this idea of equality, beyond this idea of some shared privilege, but actually moving to the place of dismantling those barriers altogether. And so that is a phenomenal undertaking, because it means that you are approaching education in a way that says you must make room for cultural representation, must make room for difficult and sometimes challenging conversations. But ultimately, if the goal is truly to get to equity, which I believe is what we should all be striving for, because that is the kind of panacea of what is true justice for all people, that is not necessarily all people being wealthy. That is people all having the ability to have wealth in the sense of good education, good health opportunities, good resources within their communities, and not having to leave their communities for said resources. And so, again, just redefining, unlearning in a number of ways the things that we have been taught, with this next generation of young people who are certainly defining for themselves things vastly different than we probably experienced as well. And also trying to keep up, quite honestly, with what their discoveries are telling them, who they are and what we have to listen to. And you spoke about academies. The school started out as an elementary school over 20 something years ago in what is considered the East Lake community here in Atlanta. And then they decided they wanted to really have an approach of having opportunity to support children from what they call cradle to college and/or career. And so they continue to build onto the school. And we now have an elementary academy, we have a middle school academy, and we also what we call our junior academy and a senior academy, which houses our high school students. So the students technically are with us from preschool through 12th grade.
You mentioned about the work that you're doing and the barriers, and I think it's so important for those who may not be involved in education to really understand how those barriers can truly hinder students. Sometimes we see students in class, or they see the teachers. I don't understand why these students aren't getting it, or I don't understand why the teachers aren't doing this, and there are all of these questions from an audience that truly, I believe, do not understand how significant those barriers are for, a variety of students. And, I love having these conversations. I had a radio show before, and my theme on that radio show was worldwide conversations. And as I have been on this journey, this conversation that we are having is indeed a worldwide conversation, because even though we're here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're talking about your work here in Atlanta, Georgia, it speaks to other parts of the world and communities in regard to education and how important it is. I think we're all more alike than we are different in some aspects, and that is definitely one of those aspects. Within the last few years, what would you say was the prominent, if there is such a thing, a prominent barrier across the board, or a prominent barrier that you've experienced?
A prominent barrier, I really believe, is ignorance of things that people simply, the things they just don't know about issues when it comes to issues of equity. I think far too many people in the last few years have used this term without knowledge of what it actually means. I think in many ways, people have not really studied and looked at the origins of word and what they actually mean, and understanding how actually when you do understand the origins of words, we actually are living out what the origins are, despite what we have tried to redefine them to be. And so terms like tolerance, when it comes to human beings, I absolutely just disagree with that term, because if we look at what the word tolerant, and when we even think about things that you tolerate, there are things that you put up with to such time that you don't have to typically. And what we have seen historically is that people who have embraced this idea of tolerance really and truly historically have found that that is what happens until such time that people feel like they no longer have to deal with that difference, which they have accepted in their communities. There is the way in which sometimes, often violently, people are removed from those communities. And so I do think that if we were to begin to understand, the most prominent thing is the unknowing of the things we thought we knew. And it is the discovery and allowing ourselves to be pushed to places of perhaps discomfort around some of those things. And it is not one particular community that has any less knowledge than the other, because unfortunately, when you understand the things that are denied in educational spaces, when it comes to history, when it comes to other things and perspectives being presented, then we all have, unfortunately, been ones who have lacked the true knowledge of understanding who people are, which I think leads us to really a lack of humanity and an understanding of how humanity should function. And so if we are coming out of a time period where, again, we had a worldwide pandemic and people were struggling, what we kept trying to do in the spaces of education is still treat children as if they needed to still compete versus be compassionate. And so what we understood is that competing when you are hungry, competing when you don't have technology is not logical. And so we keep also passing along the responsibility to our children rather than to the adults who were responsible for the children. So we'll talk about children having lost learning. Well, they didn't lose what they didn't have. So we're talking as in, again, and placing the ownership on children versus recognizing that as adults, we should have decided there must be something else we have to do in terms of the space of education than we have traditionally done, because we recognize wholeheartedly now that the barriers to the things and the access to quality education that many children are facing is far beyond our reach. And that is, again, not limited to economics, because children who lived in abusive homes were also ones who were going to be impacted by the fact that that home now became their learning environment. And those things we understand for sure are not limited to economic spaces where abuse is happening in homes and things like that. And so there are a number of different things that I think that, again, to your original question, what did I think was most permeating in terms of society? I think it definitely would be the space of ignorance, and not an ignorance in a way that is demeaning, but just an ignorance in the true sense of the word, that you simply just didn't know what you didn't know. And the discovery around that, when you have now the knowledge, what now must we do with that? And that is also the space that I feel like people are unsure of. What do we do now that we do actually have the information of the things that either we didn't know or we pretended we didn't want to know, and now we can no longer pretend that it doesn't exist. And so I think that's where we are as a nation. You can no longer pretend that you don't know what you now know. But the question now is, what do you do with that? And how do we move forward as a nation and really as a country and the world? Because we understand that these are not things limited to our shores and our borders. There are things beyond our borders that really require that if we are in the space of moving toward greater humanity, independent of where my zip code is, where my lines of borders lie, that humanity calls me to do something vastly different than perhaps we've done before. And that's beyond nationalism. That's beyond all of these things. It is looking, as you talked about, this calling for a God. It is seeking the inner God in another human being and recognizing when there is need, if I have the capacity to meet that need, I should do so because it is the right thing to do versus it is legislated to do, or someone has told me I must do these things. It is tapping into that inner God and finding ways that we are just seeking greater humanity beyond our borders.
You know, and you just answered really my next question, which was, you know, it all, as I'm listening and as perhaps audience members are listening, you are spot on. But at the same time, it all sounds so overwhelming. And each individual sits and thinks, what can I do? And, you know, I think you shared it eloquently. What is within, you may want to add to that, what is within your capacity to do, and how you can make a difference with what you have and where you are. And each of us, imagine if each of us did that worldwide, where we would be. You know,
well, I will say the first thing is recognizing that, to your point, this can be soul crushing work, because you will certainly find that you are having greater losses than wins as you start this work. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is find their circles of salvation, which are really that network of people to help you sustain your ability to remain hopeful, to find joy in spite of the things that are happening around you, to find you or to support you in developing perspectives or having different ways of examining the world that are beyond just your lived experience as well. And so those circles of salvation, again, can be ones that you continue to build out. They're not limited to just one single circle. You will find sometimes they will overlap, they will interlock with the different people that you know, and stretching yourself beyond, again, the space of comfort. So your salvation circle doesn't necessarily have to look like all the people who look like you. They don't have to all have shared experiences with you, but they should have a shared compassion and desire to see you do better and to see the world around them be better as a result of you all collectively sharing your skills, sharing your talents, supporting each other through those, as you talked about, those periods of times when things are not as rosy as you would hope that they would be. When you are dealing with sorrow or grief, those circles are the things that save you from the darkness that sometimes can overwhelm you, because they will keep pushing you to the light. They will help you stand in their light when yours is not shining as brightly as you thought it should. And so that would be the first thing. Again, building out a network of people that support you and being able to see the world be better, but also because they are trying to help you be better in the process. The other part is just being small and what you believe you have the capacity to do. As one single person, the first thing I can do is simply offer sometimes salutation to another human being. You will be surprised what a smile and a hello, which is an acknowledgement that I see you, can do for another person. So that is a very small, tangible way that you can begin the process of just tapping into other people's humanity, is just recognizing other human beings who are in the space with you. And so that's the first couple of things that I would offer. Just saying hello and smiling at people. You would be surprised how many people are not prepared for that kind of human interaction. Sometimes, because so often we get busy, we're walking down streets or we're doing whatever, and we fail to be able to just say, you know what, let me take a moment to say good morning. good afternoon, whatever time it is for you. Just doing those kind of things, I think, is where you can start. And then just the third thing I would offer is just searching yourself and saying, who am I and what do I want to say? If today was my last day, what is it that I hope that my life has done to change or make better something for either one person, for myself, or for a community? Those are the things that you can search for and find out through your own journey. What are my skills? What are my talents? How am I sharing them for the purposes of making myself or other people or my community a better place?
Wow, that is really huge and very helpful, as well, because like you said, the work can be so overwhelming, it can be crushing, and we all have to find a way to keep ourselves going as we are juggling this journey
Yes.
called life, walking our own gifts, walking in our own talents. How can the audience stay connected with you?
Well, they can find me at my website, and I, like you, like to simplify things. I am at terragay.com. You can find me there, all the things that I do, whether it's, I'm a children's author, so you can find my books there. I'm a podcast participant, so you can find my podcast there. So all things Terra, you can find at terragay.com. And they can certainly feel free to be able to reach me through that as well. So that is, I believe in simplicity when it comes
Yes.
to those connections. So just firstandlastname.com.
Yes, and we're in the world that we're living in, we're constantly inundated with information
Yes.
24/7. It's like, well, how and when do you turn your brain off?
Mm-hmm.
It's good to keep things simple that we can keep simple.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. We only have a couple more minutes left. Give our audience a word of encouragement before we close.
If I can offer anything, it is that the mantra that I started telling myself when I was in college, because that is certainly a time when you doubt yourself and you're not sure about a number of different things. At least it was for me. And I decided to tell myself every single day, in this moment, I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. But I will spend every second, every minute, and every hour of this day being someone better for tomorrow. So today, I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, but I will spend every second, every minute, every hour of today to be someone better for tomorrow. And that is in any way that you choose that to be. That could be that you decide to walk or take exercise. You may take a moment of just reflection, whatever it is for yourself, because the first recipient of service is always going to be you. So no matter how you think you can contribute to making or doing anything for someone else, first center and find what is it that you can do for yourself. And that is not a selfish act. That is a self-sustaining thing that allows for you to continue on whatever the journey is that you have plotted out for yourself. And then if you are lucky enough, as I have been, and I think I have been blessed, if your paycheck can be tied to your purpose, then it makes all the difference in the world and how you are able to sustain it when those days become a little bit darker for yourself. So that is the first thing. Be true and be reserved in the fact that you are exactly who you are supposed to be in this moment, but you have the opportunity to strive each and every moment of that day to be someone better for the next day. And then again, it is really understanding that it is okay to center yourself as you consider service to other people, and being able to start that journey.
Tara, thank you so very much for just the knowledge that you have shared with us, how you have ministered to this audience, how you have helped us to juggle this journey that we call life while walking in our gifts and talents. And audience, I'm going to need to apologize to you because those of you who have been with me for a while, at the top of some of my shows, I tell you, get paper and pencil and take some notes. I think I neglected to do that this time. So you're just going to have to go back and hit that rewind button and listen to this show again, watch this show again, because our guest, Terra Gay, has definitely dropped some knowledge, encouragement, information to help you juggle your respective journey and also to help you figure out what it is that you can do to contribute, to give back, to offer your gifts and talents to our next generation. So we thank you all so much for joining us on the journey. Make sure you stay connected through Paula G Voice. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much to our underwriters. And as always, remember that the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one that takes place in between your ears. What are you speaking to yourself? Is God a part of that conversation? And are you listening to his still small voice? I am Paula G. This is my journey with Paula G. Until next time, embrace the journey.
Your grace is sufficient, oh yes, covers me in the middle of my mess. Even in the midst of a storm, only you can comfort with your loving arms. The kind of grace that lasts always, gives peace that surpasses my understanding. Can't make it without your grace. I'm talking about your grace. New mercies at the start of my day, follows me as I travel along the way. I just love how you're always there, saving me from myself. Over and over again, you're the same.